and welcome to Cordkillers Reckoning. The world of entertainment is turned upside down, and we're just trying to find out how to watch what we want, where we want, whenever we want. I'm Tom Merritt. Brian, where's Amos?
Oh, well, I guess he is the good stuff.
He is the good stuff.
I don't know. I'm starting to get suspicious here, Tom. We take a week off, then you're not here, but Amos is. Now you're here, and Amos isn't. Starting to feel a little bit messed with. Hey, where's my normal cord killings?
Oh, I thought you were going to do the old, like, I've never seen you in the two same room together, except you have. So.
Yes, but more importantly, man, you've got a hard job. You got to keep everything afloat. I like it when I'm just a barking dog off to the side.
Yeah, I like that too. So, I mean, I like it when I also am joining you as the dog that is barking on the side.
I thought that was a scathing indictment of my attempt to fill in for you last week. Yeah,
no,
Brian, I've been wanting
no.
to talk to you about this.
Not at all. Not at all. I just we just want to make sure that we honor Amos when we make mistakes and say, see, that's why we need Amos.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's get right into the supply run.
Supply run.
Oh, it's right here. Netflix is delisting almost all of its interactive specials as of December 1st. Probably the one most of you will think of is Black Mirror Bandersnatch, but there was also an Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Kimmy versus the Reverend. There's the Puss in Boots ones, which I can't tell if those are going away or not. Spokesperson Chrissy Kelleher told The Verge, the technology served its purpose, but is now limiting as we focus on technological efforts in other areas. And Brian, one of those other areas is Netflix's video game ambitions, which right now are just mostly mobile games, but some desktop games and available included with your current Netflix subscription.
Yeah, I don't see why they had to put out a whole press release about delisting them. If you ask me, these properties were already on the D-list. Am I right?
Oh, dang.
No, I'm sorry. I teed that up without any regard to how good or bad those are, because I haven't tried any of them.
It seems to me that you make sure people know this, because when they go away, someone's going to notice, and there will be Netflix quietly shelves Bandersnatch. Why did they do it? Right. And so you get ahead of it to say, like, hey, if you want to watch these one last time, we're pulling them. What I don't understand is why pull them at all? Like, I do understand saying we're not going to make more of these. We're going to focus on the gaming strategy, and anything like this would probably go in that bucket. But why bother taking these down?
Two reasons. The letter A and the letter I.
Because alimony and intersex.
They have the assets to do this again. But if they were to just say now powered by AI, it would be like lost in the maelstrom of everything else that's going on. However, if they take it away and then use these assets to bring them back later in a new context, maybe one that doesn't involve any human salaries, that could be run in perpetuity forever and ever, then they're better positioned. Like, basically, you take things away when you're tired of promising to support it. And my guess also is it would not surprise me at all if they have more advanced versions of this. They're saying, hey, this is how it went last time we did a gimmicky thing like this. This is what we want to try 4 years from now or 2 years from now or whatever. And somewhere somebody's like, well, I don't see how we go straight from what you're doing to something else. They're like, forget what we're doing. What we're doing is dead and gone. Don't care about it. Working on the new thing. That's what's going on.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me to a point, which is, the technology served its purpose, but is now limiting. Okay, fine. You're definitely not going to make more of these. I can also see, gosh, we'd like to do Black Mirror Bandersnatch with current large language models or generative models of some other kind helping along. But we don't want people going and easily comparing it to the old one. We also want to build up that interest, like you're saying, of hey, it went away, but if you want to try it new, and you would want people to be coming to it fresh and being like, oh, I don't remember it being like this. So maybe that's it. That does fit what they're saying. I still don't know. There's something about me. It's like, yeah, but just leave them on there. Wouldn't that build interest? But no, you're right. Taking them away and putting it in the archive is a Disney proven trick for rebuilding interest when you bring something back.
And think of it this way. This is one of the reasons I really love Alchemy by Rory Sutherland is objectively, the smell of fresh baked bread is just as good whether bread has been baking all day or not. In fact, you just get more of it. So objectively, by the mathematical numbers, it is better and better. However, it's not as good as the smell of it finally creeping in for the very first time or whatever. And in order to get that, you have to clear the air. So whatever, my assumption is, like, it would be crazy if they just tried it once and never wanted to do it again. And if they were going to do anything like this again, then this would be the prescription I would write. Because what are you going to get, like a half dozen people using it, and you're not going to get that fresh baked bread for the first time smell when the new thing comes.
Yeah, although I feel like it costs them nothing to leave these up. At the same token, it does cost them a little to leave anything up. There are rights that have to be paid even in content you own. When it's just sitting on a drive. We've seen that, when Max pulls things out of its library to great effect. I assume that is less of an issue here, but it could be a small issue of like, and we don't have to pay these residuals if they're not available anymore. Maybe there's something in a new contract if they want to make a new version of saying like, well, if we take away this older one, it makes it easier to write the contract for the new one, et cetera, et cetera. What about the idea that they just found that these didn't work, that people didn't like them or didn't want to use them,
or just it wasn't good enough, in which case, like part of the reason you spend the money to do a stunt like this anyway is to get people engaged with it, right? And so in that case, you get all the PR for having done it. If there's free PR to be gotten for taking it away, then take that as well. Like imagine two timelines, one where they do just leave it kind of unacknowledged and unused for a long time, and then count up how many viewers are going to experience it over the next 10 years. It could be that the number is a lot higher now because they've announced that they're going to take it away, and it cost them nothing to announce that they're going to take it away.
Yeah, you do get a little data of like, okay, what is the new way people approach these things, and we can learn from that when we make the next one.
I'll tell you this much: the chances of me checking out Bandersnatch were 0 this morning and are non-zero now.
Yeah, right.
And it cost them nothing to get.
That plays into the fact that they didn't say we've delisted them. They said, we're delisting them on December 1st. You got till then, folks. Hurry up and get your Bandersnatch on.
Well, and keep in mind, from a tactical perspective, that gives them incredibly rich data sets because now they know which PR vertical is able to reach this many people. I mean, it's so wild, Tom. Now, the more of being an independent, both of us have had to kind of analyze like what works, what doesn't work, and everything. I don't know about you, but what it seems like to me is the only way to lose is to not make moves. If you don't make moves, then you just desiccate wherever you're standing.
The best you can hope for is to die slowly if you don't make any moves, right?
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely true. So I think the adventure that I would recommend people choose is supporting independent contractors like us.
Yeah, man. Why sit there on the sidelines and just wonder? I wonder if those cords are alive or not. No. How about you actually? Here's a butcher's knife. You do all of our beautiful, beautiful patrons. Head on over to Patreon.
Well, your connection broke up a little.
Oh, did? Oh, yeah.
There we go. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Now your connection's working again.
Oh, no. I can't believe it, man. I bought a brand
please
new
do.
cord. Uh-oh.
Yeah? And then it's already killed?
I guess so.
No,
that's our commitment to the bit.
The lag is making the bit seem like a bit. But it's really just lag.
Yeah, it's just lag. Boy, that's pretty crazy. You know what? We'll get more. We'll go back to cable if you guys go to Cordkillers. Patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Please. Brian needs more cords. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Let's see if the search party can figure this. Oh, Brian, this will make your lag go away. Andor returning April 22nd, 2025. 12 episode season, not a 12-second season. That'd be very short.
What is this, Quibi?
The 12 episode season will take place over 4 years, split into 3 episode pods. So each trio of episodes covering a few consecutive days in each successive year leading up to the events of Rogue One. And they said writing this was nice because they knew where they were going. They knew the ending they had in mind.
Yeah, and even that ending, what a curious way to write this, because, of course, there was an existing script and process that had a shakeup, and Rogue One got created. So Rogue One out of the gates was kind of a curious mix of things. And then Andor, obviously, it's my favorite Star Wars anything, full stop, at all. And to be able to write, we've talked about the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, where you shoot the side of a barn first and then go back and paint the target. They get to do that with Rogue One. Rogue One, whether you liked it or didn't like it in the movie theater, it was a shot on the side of the barn, and Andor was the beginning of a target painted around it. And I will be fascinated, because I did not care for Rogue One. I knew there were a lot of characters, and I admired the fortitude of the fact that, spoiler alert, they kill off the main character at the end of Rogue One. But now that we have that end point, the real interesting challenge will be, are they going to be able to make me care about the 12 different characters that I couldn't even remember the names of when I saw it in the movie theater?
A testament to season 1 of Andor, I sort of forgot that it was the story of Cassian Andor from Rogue One.
Right? Same here.
Yeah, when I read this, my brain immediately went like, oh, I guess we'll see how Andor ties into Rogue One. And then immediately we're like, oh, no, I already know how he ties in, because he's one of the main characters.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, almost certainly there's going to be characters that we're going to meet that'll take us right in to Rogue One.
They almost have to be in that last pod, right? Because the trick, it is good when you know your ending, because then you can lead up to it and build tension, and you're not, making episodes that tread water because you're just trying to fill the air. It's also difficult when you know your ending, because you can't change it. It's one thing to know your ending when you're writing something no one's ever seen, but when you know your ending because everyone has seen the movie and you have to stick with like, okay, this is what happened in Rogue One and we're not going to change that. It can be trickier. So I'll be interested to see how well they thread that needle. I'm not saying they can't at all. Season 1 gives me great confidence that they can.
Yeah. One of the things I hope they do, and it's tough to do this in real time because sometimes it feels too fan servicey, like you're just doing a thing just to like, oh my God, that's the guy who shows up later on the thing.
Right.
But it would be neat if some themes in the movie suddenly had a deeper meaning as a result of the storytelling in Andor.
So you want R2-D2 to show up is what you're saying.
What are you doing? What are you doing? And that was something that Rogue One was guilty of. There were some crossover characters that were kind of eye-rolling.
That may or may not needed to be there.
Yeah.
Although I actually am a fan of how they ended it connected to A New Hope. How they got to the connection was a little janky, but the last little bit where I'm like, oh, he's going to walk through the door like he walked through the door. I thought that was kind of cool. I wish the funnel that got us there was a little different as well. Deadline and Variety both report that Lucasfilm has tapped Simon Kinberg, the X-Men guy, to write and develop a new Star Wars trilogy. Deadline says it might, sorry, Brian, might be a continuation of the Skywalker story. But it could also be a brand new saga. They don't know for sure. There are 3 other movies that Lucasfilm has announced. We don't really have firm dates or details about any of them. James Mangold is making one. Dave Filoni's making one. Charmin Obaid-Chinoy is making one. And that one supposedly is the one that was rumored to bring back Rey in some kind of attempt to build a new Jedi Order. But at the time, the rumors were it wouldn't be a new Skywalker film except for having Rey in it. It would be an ancillary film. I don't love the implication from Deadline, like, I don't know, could be episodes 10 through 12.
Yeah, you know what? we've seen surprising things happen between announcements and execution. For example, the Han Solo movie being taken over by Ron Howard, and all the best parts of it being the humor from why can I not remember the team that did Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball and Mitchell's versus the Machines?
But those people,
Lord
yeah,
and Miller,
I can't remember.
Lord and Miller.
Yeah, exactly. All this story made me think was, I am tired of hearing about possible new Star Wars movies. Please wake me when there is one.
Yeah, or maybe don't wake me if there is one. wake me when the Rotten Tomatoes are in.
I mean, I guess we are going to have a Star Wars movie of a sort, because Mandalorian's going to have a movie, but people seem to be discounting that as like, yeah, but that's just the series making a movie to finish itself off, which is a time-honored tradition. It's different than a new Star Wars story because it's continuing the story from The Mandalorian.
I guarantee you that movie is going to be like opening scene. Sorry, the rules have changed. Mandalorians must never wear helmets, ever. Did you hear that, Pedro Pascal?
It's in your contract right here. Give me the contract, R2-D2. Variety reports that Amazon will make a TV series based on the Mass Effect video game franchise. Writer and executive producer Daniel Casey is reported to be on board. Probably best known to most folks listening here as the primary screenwriter on F9. Fast and Furious 9, the Fast saga.
This is one of those cases where there are, I think we've seen this with video games, where it's like, take a beloved movie, video game kind of unabashedly is a knockoff of a movie, and then that develops its own sea legs, becomes beloved for its own reasons, and then movie is made of the video game. And you end up with like that whole copy of a copy thing, as cliche and as obvious and as trite as it is. Sometimes it works. You make enough copies, all of a sudden, you know what you're doing? Creating new art. It's amazing.
It's probably a stretch to say this, but Star Wars is kind of that.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not a movie that it's a knockoff of, but it's definitely honoring certain types of movies.
Yeah, what did Lucas call it? He said wagon train to the... No, that was Roddenberry.
That was Star Trek. Yeah, called it Wagon Train to the Stars. That's another good example.
He did refer to it as a Western. He was called it a spaghetti Western in space.
Yeah. So I look forward to it.
Yeah, I do too.
Bong Joon Ho's Robert Pattinson sci-fi movie is getting a more prime slot in the calendar. Mickey 17 will now arrive in theaters Easter weekend, April 18th. It previously was going to come out earlier on January 31st, but some other stuff moved around. So Mickey 17, January 31st, no longer. April 18th, Easter weekend will be the premiere time, and it will lock up all the IMAX screens in the world that weekend. If you want to go to an IMAX theater, you're seeing Mickey 17, April 18th.
It does look pretty good. The premise looks good. Robert Pattinson, we've seen, knows he's pretty good at acting.
Robert Pattinson, great at acting, and also great at being in indie. Not that Bong Joon Ho really qualifies as indie anymore, but in the independent spirit, Pattinson has done some really interesting things there. And of course, Bong Joon Ho, if you're not recognizing the name, is the director of Parasite, which won an Oscar. So, and I felt was the best movie out that year. So I think the table is set for Mickey 17 to totally disappoint everyone.
I was about to say, what? All the stars are aligned? It's can't miss all the way down?
Yeah.
Oh, we're hosed.
Yep. Oh, well, I am looking forward to seeing it because it does look intriguing from the outside. Netflix released the titles of the 8 episodes of Stranger Things Season 5 and gave us a release year next year. I think I could have guessed that one, but they made a big deal out of coming 2025, and it's the first time they've officially said that. I don't know that there's anything you can glean from these titles. The Turnbow Trap, Shock Jock, Escape from Camazotz, The Right Side Up is the finale. I mean,
yeah, sometimes you have to be news and just a news. And then it's like, give them something. I don't know. What are we going to do? Give them just the titles with no context? And PR person's like, yep, that'll do. Thanks.
Yep. Everyone will make whatever they make out of that. Are there any real spoilers in there? Oh no, they won't be able to tell anything from these games. Great.
Great.
It's exactly what we want. Godzilla -1 was, for some, a surprise hit because it's from Toho, not from a U.S. studio, and in the Godzilla series. So Takashi Yamazaki is set to write, direct, and steer video effects for a new Godzilla film for Toho. So more from the mind behind Godzilla -1.
Yeah, I liked that one.
Yeah, like Dish. What was the ish?
It turned out it was a Godzilla movie. But,
okay.
I know that
kind of figured you knew that going in, but no, sure.
Well, it started off as I knew it would going in. Like there are people who like giant kaiju beating each other up just for the pro wrestling of it. And yes, and
I'm right here, Ryan.
And you guys are the best. I love the deeper meta narratives that worm their way in there, and I thought this was a particularly good one about the kind of the daring, like no, let's talk about how messed up it was, the whole suicide bombing of Pearl Harbor and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and honor culture writ large. It is interesting.
I am wondering because that was an interesting. Shtick is the wrong word, but it was an interesting angle to say, well, okay, we've told so many Godzilla stories. What if we tell the story leading up to it? It's not exactly a remake. That story had been alluded to and told a little bit, but it was a new approach to telling it. I'm curious if we're going to get Godzilla Year Zero because, that is a story that has been told multiple times. I'm not saying I wouldn't entertain another telling of it, but I don't expect that. I don't know. Maybe we're going to get Godzilla -1,000 or something. And I'm curious to see.
That would be interesting. Sort of an anthology, kind of like, what is it? Green Lantern is an office, not a guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If maybe Godzilla, in Shogun times or I don't know. Finally, something that first got its start during the Shogunate, Days of Our Lives has been renewed. It is, in fact, only its 61st season. The newest outing marks the 3rd season on Peacock. Days of Our Lives, if you're like, I don't see Days of Our Lives on TV anymore, that's because you're not looking for it. It's on Peacock, but lots of people are looking for it. It is among the streamer's top 10 most watched titles consistently. Your stories are released every weekday, Monday through Friday, and that means the 15,000th episode will air on December 2nd, or a stream, I guess.
They've recently announced that the 15,000th and first, they're going to find the one-armed man. It's amazing.
I am glad to see this. Not just because I'm a sentimental old crap and I like to see something as long-lived as Days of Our Lives stick around, and my mom watched Days of Our Lives, so it was a slight part of my background music of my childhood, but also the fact that people are still into it. It's interesting to see stuff like that where you get a crowd. You can argue whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, but it's serving a crowd, and the crowd was like, yeah, we don't care how we get it. Peacock, fine. How do I sign it up? Where do I install it? I want to keep watching my stories.
I kind of love the idea that everything just keeps splintering to the point where they're still doing, at this point, in the distant future, it's all AI generated or whatever. And the viewership is so specific that it's like they're doing the show for just one person. And they're all like, what do you think, Judith?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's starting to reveal as mediums change in front of our eyes. It starts to reveal like what were the categories that only existed because of the medium, and what are the categories that are beyond the medium, and maybe we just hadn't discovered them or identified them before.
Yeah. And also, it did remind me of, Penn Jillette tells the story of, there was some time that Penn and Teller had a show and they had an afternoon free, and there was some, once mainstream magic act that they could go see. And then they go there and it's a very sad ramshackle theater. This, coming up on 90 years old, this husband and wife team, they're just going through the motions. There's 3 people in the audience. And Penn leans over to Teller and says, you realize in 30 more years, this is us. And then Teller leans over and says, I'm okay with that. I'd like to believe that's you and I as well.
Yeah,
Still talking about the great cord killing revolution.
To Judith, we will be talking about the great Cordkillers revolution as simulated versions of ourselves. But I will point out, like, top 10 most watched title. Like, Days of Our Lives isn't in a ramshackle theater with 3 people. Like, it's still going strong. So
it does undercut my joke I was trying to make. But yeah,
no, I know, but it pointed out to me another aspect of this is like, it's not just long lived, it's long loved.
Ooh, well played, sir.
Thank you. And now we have our title. Let's check out the buried treasure.
Most people want to know why they suddenly got rich.
Buried treasure.
Well, Brian, it's been a minute since you and I chatted about what we've been watching. What have you been watching?
Man, I wrapped up The Wire. In fact, I did rewatch. I can't believe it's been so long since we've talked about this stuff. I did rewatch that last episode a second time, and it was fun getting a running start into that ending of The Wire a second time. Or I guess a third time now.
Yeah.
But I had an idle couple of hours. And I was like, what should I find? Because I got all the way caught up on Lower Decks, and because my 17-year-old is now 17, doesn't quite have time to watch What We Do in the Shadows with me, but insists that I not watch it without her. And so I read pretty good reviews for It's Florida, Man, produced by Danny McBride. And I knew it was kind of like a drunk history with Florida. And I was kind of like steeled for it to not be my cup of tea, punching down, that kind of stuff. And yeah, there's an okay amount of that, but there's a little bit of very clearly the locals who are the originators of these stories. Like they're some of them, they seem in on it. Other times they don't. But I will say that the very first episode, you're either going to love or hate, because it opens with Sam Richardson about to cut off and eat a dude's toes.
Okay. Those are one thing I know I like. Sam Richardson.
And also Sam Richardson. Oh, okay.
Why? Yeah, your question is, why don't you like Sam Richardson, Tom? Yeah. Is Danny McBride punching down, or is he punching laterally, though?
Well, it's a couple of the episodes, what in a less polite society 20 years ago would call trailer trash, are featured, and they're the ones telling the stories, and then they cut to the reenactments of the stories, and in the over the topness of it, it's like, are they actively making fun of this dude who got his arm bitten off by an alligator? Because also, I'm watching the dude who got his arm bitten off by an alligator, and that guy's a little bit touched and kind of out there. So,
okay. All right. Yeah. No, I hear you.
It tickles that it's like okay, look, when I was in my 20s, Tom, I was not a great person. I used to get up early at every magic convention and go to watch the magic competitions just so I could see 17-year-olds who had clearly only rehearsed in their mom's living room for months and then had never gotten on stage fumble their way through a magic act. And at the time, it was just Schadenfreude. Now I'm teaching all those kids. But there's a little bit of that in there.
I see. So if there's a little bit of that in you, then you might like It's Florida, Man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about some cord cutting adventures on the road.
Oh, yeah.
I get my live Fox Sports through DirecTV Now, the DirecTV subscription that you can get for streaming only. Don't need a satellite dish for it or anything. Mostly we get it because that is the only way to get Sportsnet LA and watch the Dodgers games without having cable. But it allows me to watch Fox Sports streaming without having to try to find some other way, use a VPN or whatever. But I also get MLB's streaming package through T-Mobile at no additional charge. So my T-Mobile subscription comps me that every year. I can't watch the World Series on that when I'm in the United States because I have another way to watch them, which is DirecTV Now. But I was traveling to South Korea, so I had my choice of ways to watch the World Series. I could stream it from MLB.com because I was outside of the United States, so therefore outside of the blackout area. I could watch it on SPO TV, which gave me the Fox video feed with Korean announcers. Or I could watch it with the VPN on DirecTV and just stream it from my local account. I tried it all three ways.
First of all, that is the most Tom thing I've ever heard. And the only way you could go more Tom is what I was about to ask is, do you think it'd be possible to do one of those, doggone it. Was it Streamamp? What was the Winamp thing where like you could get like AM that Soma FM was on back then? It doesn't matter.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm imagining doing the thing where you have a Korean dubbed commentary, but you're listening to the local AM station on the other side of the planet for the English commentary.
I could have done that through MLB. MLB gives you the radio broadcasts as well. I ended up actually watching.
Shoutcast?
We watched some of one game with just the Korean on, just to kind of experience it. I watched, I think one or actually more than one. There was one where we were out and we were in a convenience store eating. And so I had it on MLB.TV on my phone. But for whatever reason, I found it easier. I think because I had my VPN on for other reasons on the hotel Wi-Fi, I was like, well, yeah, just launch DirecTV and watch it that way. And so we would put it up on the laptop. Oh, that's why, because it was easier to do that on the laptop, I think. And the laptop was on VPN, and then plug the HDMI cable into the television so that we could watch it on the big television screen, just like we would watch it at home. Here's the cool thing. The Moxie Hotel we stayed in had an HDMI port in the desk that was connected to the television for you to do that. They didn't make you scramble around behind the TV to do it. They're like, we know you're going to do this. Here, let's make it easy for you.
That's amazing. And I have seen a number of hotels. I think the Hard Rock in Atlanta, it's a right across from a sports venue. So you could tell that everything's super, super nice. Sorry, I don't want to chase this random thread, but yeah, I'm seeing more hotels do exactly that.
Yeah. The other way we watched it when Eileen was very nervous because the Dodgers were in the World Series. They were up 3-0 and then they lost. They lost a game and they needed to come back and win, and they were losing another game. We were sitting on a bench overlooking a freeway, just drinking a coffee, and she's like, I don't even want to have the video on. Save your battery. So I would just look at the MLB game day updates and tell her, like, it's in play. and the Dodgers had a rally that we then had to go watch on-demand video later. The other thing I want to mention that I watched when we were in Korea on KBS TV there, and you can get it on Viki on streaming here, is a show called Synchro U, which is AI covers of songs with like major Korean artists doing a different major Korean artist song. So for us, it'd be like Dave Grohl, but singing, or actually John Denver, but singing a Dave Grohl song, or John, I don't know, maybe it's Dave Grohl singing a John Denver song because John Denver's not alive. But then you would have to guess. They'd have a panel of people having to guess, was that the AI or was that the actual person singing the cover?
Oh, that's wild. So you knew the crazy mashup. So you're already in where it's like, oh, I would never expect to hear this performer do this.
I would never expect to hear Dave Grohl do Country Roads, right? But here I am hearing it. But is it AI that did it? Or is Dave Grohl actually standing back there, and then when the door is revealed, he'll come out?
That's interesting. Artistically, I wonder what the deeper message is there. Like, I mean, obviously, like, you're kind of rooting for one or the other. Like, what if the clearly better song is done by robots, or I don't know.
Yeah, there is a weird dynamic of, if they can't guess that it's AI, does that mean the AI is better? Right?
Yeah,
like,
right?
Yeah. But I don't know. It seems to be a fairly decent show. It was put out as a pilot in the early summer, and it got picked up for a half a season. So it's airing now. And I thought it was fascinating because, you know, I don't know that you get that show made in the United States. Because of
just for rights
feelings
alone,
just the feelings around AI. You know, how many musicians can you get to sign up to come on the show and say, yeah, it's okay to make an AI version of me that's singing for me to compete against?
Well, and also, in that case, nobody wants anything left to chance. Like I'm certain that everybody would do it only under the condition that they were able to have the deck stacked. You know, it's like, oh yeah, and then we dunk on AI, right?
Yeah, right. And this show doesn't seem to do that. A lot of times the door opens and there's nobody there, and the panel's like, oh man, I can't believe we got it wrong. So it was a fascinating show. Again, if you want to look it up, it's called Synchro, like SYNCHRO, Synchro U. If you got something we should be on the lookout for, email us cordkillers@gmail.com. It's my week to talk about another thing that I'm doing, Brian. And another thing that I'm doing is my newsletter, which is always what I talk about when I do this. But the newsletter has been more fun than ever while I've been traveling. I've been keeping it up. This Week in Tom Merritt, you can go to freetomnewsletter.com to get it. And it's not only all the things that I'm doing every week, technology and shows and things like Cordkillers, but also food pictures.
Of course it is.
I'm actually working on an edition of this that will just collect the food pictures that I'm going to put out separately with a title that says, here are just the food pictures, because there's people who are demanding that. They're like, we want to see more pictures of the food you ate on your trip. But I know there are people who are like, yeah, I don't want to see that. I'm not interested in that. So I'm segregating that off. But there's also a bunch of stories about technology and VPN, other VPN stuff like the World Series stuff. Some weird things with Ticketmaster where it permanently began to think I was in Australia, and all kinds of stuff. So you can get that at freetomnewsletter.com. Shall we scan the horizon?
Send a scanning crew aboard.
Scanning the horizon!
Amazon launched X-ray recaps on Monday. This automatically generates text summaries of entire seasons of television shows on Prime Video. From the detail page of a show in Prime Video, you can select a rewind icon and choose from a recap of the current episode that you are watching, the season so far, or a previous season. And if you choose a current season or current episode that you're watching, it will take into account how far you are into that episode and not give you spoilers. The feature is live in the US for Fire TV users on MGM Studios original titles, so it's not on everything, just on the Amazon-owned studio, some of its titles. The model was trained on video subtitles and dialogue from the shows. I love, Brian, that they're using it in a way that's like, well, let's take advantage of the fact that on the fly, it can tell where you are in the show.
Yeah, well, and it just sort of has a general presence of mind to act like, I don't know, a roommate would. And,
right.
Not, I'm sure that they could decide on different flavors of how your roommate would behave, including being a jerk on purpose, but at least it won't be out of laziness or well, and how many times have you wanted to tell somebody something about a show and you're like, where are you? And they describe the episode and you're like, okay, I think I know where you are. Let me just play it safe and I'll tell you this, right? This thing doesn't have to play it safe. It knows better than you do exactly where you are and can not spoil you. So yeah, it is astonishing how quickly my default expectations have readjusted. Like, I find myself saying again and again, like, ugh, I can't wait for Siri to get smart. I can't wait for Alexa to stop being so dumb. So dumb. Why are you so dumb?
Well, good news. Disney has created the Office of Technology Enablement. It will be led by the former CTO of Walt Disney Studios, Jamie Voris. The department will oversee AI mixed reality adoption in a responsible way across Disney.
Do you think any of the consumers are worried about that word responsible? What a dog whistle to talent. Like, don't worry, it's going to be okay to work with us.
Is it okay? I totally agree with you, except is it a dog whistle to talent, or is it recognizing the reality of, yes, we could just do this and the customers won't care, but then we'll have to deal with an employee revolt. Like, to me, it's smart to be like, even if only the employees care, it's good to make sure that your employees are on board because they're more productive.
Sure. I'm speaking purely from the I would imagine I'm speaking from the audience's perspective, where it's like you hear somebody begin a land acknowledgement, and you're like, well, I'm not going to speak for you. I'll speak for myself on that one.
I do think there are also customers who are going to say, they have a risk anyway of some customers saying, well, I'm not watching Disney things anymore if they're using AI, because there is a swath. I don't know how big it is, but there are a swath of people who say, I don't want to engage with anything that has been using this. And so having somebody say, well, we're doing it in a responsible way and we're working with the artists and blah, 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 will help a few of those people feel better about watching Andor or something else.
Well, and and by the way, I try really hard to be kind to everybody, because right now is when people are staking their kind of fur is murder-esque claims and their hills to die on about AI. And very clearly, it's like, everybody's going to be against AI until it cures your daughter's blindness, and then all of a sudden you're going to be for it. And all I'm concerned with is making sure everybody has a golden bridge, and that I don't spend time mocking them while they're on wrong island.
Yeah, I think it's a no-win situation, right? If you create the Office of Technology Enablement, you open yourself up to accusations of, oh, you're just doing that for the PR. But also, if you wanted to make sure you used it responsibly, you'd open an Office of Technology Enablement and you would tell people about it. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, unless you just don't use it at all, which some companies have done. Some companies have said, we will never use AI in our products. They may regret that or change their minds later. We'll see. But that would be the other direction. And it sounds like Disney sees too much of an advantage in using these kinds of tools. And then the question becomes, is it going to be apparent? Will you be able to tell? I think that's what people fear, is like, so it's going to be crappy AI generated stuff, which it could happen, but I don't expect that's what Disney has in mind by creating this office.
Yeah. Two quick thoughts on this. And I know you talk about AI an awful lot on DTNS. So if you're bored of this beat, then that's fine. But buy stock in humans. And that's one thing that I just hope, number one, I do think that there is going to be essentially like an ethically sourced LLM model, akin to, I think we've talked about, the automatic license that the RIAA had for music and covers.
The compulsory license. Yeah.
Compulsory license. Yeah. That will happen, I believe, or some version of that, or some ecosystem will develop. But also meanwhile, it's the humans who are afraid that the robots are taking for their jobs. And it's like, no. What you don't understand is now, as a human artist, you are more valuable than ever before. You just got a promotion. But look, it's going to take a while for people to see it. And that's fine. I'll just be here waiting.
I've been making the case that as synthesized content rises and gets better, it's not there yet, but it will get there. And once it does, there will be a market for human created content, just like there's a market for small batch whatever, right? Like we place a value on the old ways being best. And I don't understand why content would be any exception to that. The other thing is, there will also be a very clear difference between people who use these tools well and make a better thing that you enjoy, and people who use them poorly and make an inferior thing. And the inferior things generally end up losing, depending on how you look at it. Some people are like, oh no, all the Hollywood movies are inferior and the blockbusters are awful. So if you don't judge superiority by success and popularity, then maybe not. Did I already tell you, I'm only taking this side jag because we have a little bit of extra time this week. Did I already tell you my theory of Comic Sans and AI? Did we already have this conversation? I don't remember.
Okay, so Comic Sans and Papyrus are two fonts that are laughable now. And in fact, if anything, they're getting kind of a rebound based on just how kind of a post-ironic rebound, right?
Right.
But when they both came out, Papyrus came out in the early 80s, and it was revered because it had this kind of exotic vibe to it that added depth. Comic Sans was revered because it had this folksy kind of feel to it. However, both of them in the early 90s were available on, Windows TrueType fonts. And now, because it was easy, everybody graduated or gravitated towards them. However, they became synonymous with low effort content. And so as a result, yes, it took the world's eyes a few years to adjust, but very quickly, by the mid-aughts, Comic Sans was laughable, literally laughable. I had a prop that had Comic Sans on it, and I had to write a line into my stage show that pointed out how hilariously bad the font was on it. And the exact same thing is going to happen with low effort AI. You can already see like Dolly images from a year ago or something. Like I saw a piece of merch that at the time I thought it was pretty good looking merch, but now our eyes have attuned to the overly polished edges, the overly symmetrical designs that Dolly does. And only now we're figuring out the words for this kind of stuff. But now out of the corner of our eye, I saw a YouTube thumbnail that 2 years ago would have been jaw-dropping and made me click. But instead, out of the corner of my eye, I was like, why is that garbage thumbnail there? And then I hovered over it, and it said 7 views, and it was very clearly somebody's beginner channel, and it was like an explainer for the split wave experiment with light. But it just had this incredible in-depth thumbnail that I know took about 4 seconds to make, and therefore it was Comic Sans, and I just didn't click it.
Yeah. The other thought that struck me when you talked about the idea of a compulsory license is, I wonder, I don't expect this to happen, but I wonder how quickly the conversation would change if something like that came about and suddenly everyone on the internet is getting a check, right? Because the economics are there for companies to be able to afford it, even if they don't want to. And if you've posted anything on the internet, which you have, I'm just going to guess, then, your check might not be big, but you might be in line for something. So, yeah. Could be interesting. Could change a lot of thoughts about this. 2 more things to get to before we wrap up. AMC Networks has bought out BBC's share in BBC America as of November 1st. A lot of you may not have realized that BBC America was a joint venture between AMC Networks and the BBC. It was not part of the UK licensing scheme. It was run entirely outside of the country, so it could take advertising and all of that and get subscription money from cable. It was mostly run by AMC Networks, but BBC had a voice in what would appear on there and what it would reserve to shop out to other networks. That's why Doctor Who's on Disney, not on BBC America. I think AMC Network buying this out will probably mean more and less than you might expect. It'll mean less than you might expect in the sense that AMC Networks was kind of running it already, and they're still going to have a license for BBC stuff. So you'll still get BBC stuff showing on BBC America, but for how long? Right? At what point now AMC Networks has the easy right to go like, we're going to change the name of BBC America and we're going to have it show entirely different types of programming. And that happens to channels all the time. Look at the Learning Channel.
I just want to, given the fact that AMC is American movies, movie classics, and BBC is British Broadcasting Corporation, and a joint venture was called BBC America. I just want to believe that finally AMC is like, we're just calling it America now.
Yeah, wouldn't that would be ironic if BBC America changed its name to America and it was just all patriotic movies and TV shows. And finally, World Series. I talked about the World Series and my efforts to watch it internationally, but domestically, Game 5 of the World Series got 18.6 million viewers for Fox Sports. That was the last game of the series, and it was the most watched episode or game of the World Series in 7 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And the team in the playoffs 7 years ago was the Los Angeles Dodgers. I don't know if that makes a difference. So.
They're the hit maker.
Yeah, they are. The New York Yankees versus the Los Angeles Dodgers. as much as people in the Midwest like myself would look at it and go, oh, great, the coastal teams always getting all the attention. And one of the reasons they do is there's a lot of people there, and a lot of those people move other places and still follow those teams. So it was a big ratings getter. Let's finish up with some chatter.
You've got mail.
We got an email from Sean who said, if you could find some way to semi-regularly include Merrill Barr, it would be fantastic. His insider's look makes such a nice additional perspective when combined with Tom's super researched and thought out takes and Brian's branding and wild speculation takes. I think it's great. Keep up the good works. Signed, Merrill's mom. No, I'm just kidding. That is
I really enjoyed it because it occurred to me that not only was this the first time in over a year that we did the show without you, but first time in over a year that we had a guest on.
Has it been that long since we had a guest?
It was a wake-up call when Merrill texted me saying, so like call in on the Opal and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's been a minute.
No kidding. Oh, well, that's great. No, and I'm glad you enjoyed Merrill being on, and I'm sorry I missed it, actually. Thank you, Sean, for writing in on that. A different Sean writes in, the third season of Somebody Somewhere has come out on Max HBO. It's a great sitcom that is very grounded and is the inverse of a drama like Succession, where every character is awful and the humor is the flavor of cringe-inducing. Somebody Somewhere has all the characters that are likable, and the humor is embarrassing but empathetic because you share with the characters, oh, that person is an unwinnable situation, but they are reacting in a hilarious way. Every June, Max airs Pride promos. In the past couple of years, I'm surprised that they include Somebody Somewhere. I'm asking myself, is being Midwestern the plus in the LGBTQ plus? Because the gay best friend, the trans man secondary character, and other tertiary characters are just there, while the ethos of being Midwestern is what is being pushed forward, similar to Seinfeld being a New York City show or Entourage being a Los Angeles entertainment industry center sitcom. Somebody Somewhere is unquestionably a Midwestern show. I wonder if Tom has watched the show and what does he think about it since he's a born and bred Midwesterner. Maybe get a friend of the show and fellow Midwesterner Andrew Heaton's take on it as well. I have not watched Somebody Somewhere. I should check it out.
Yeah.
And thank you, Sean, for writing in. You haven't, I take it, encountered it either.
No. Free time. Not a lot of it lately.
Yeah, same here. Well, thanks everybody for supporting us and being with us. Thanks for being our patron, patreon.com/cordkillers. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. And we are live on twitch.tv/Night Attack Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I reckon we'll talk to you next.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.